abduction happened on May 1st. And what the deal was, I think it could have been Anthony that gave me this virtual reality experience. Anthony is the one that came in physical form 4 times in like a 3-week period. And there's nothing perverted about him. So it's like, when he gave me this experience, well, I think it was probably him, there wasn't any sex in it or anything. Like Joel, he always puts sex in everything. That being right there, and Joel kind of looks like him. But Anthony, I don't know what he really looks like, in his dimension. He's interdimensional now in his other dimension. But he showed up physically for me 4 times in a 3-week period. And I don't know, he could be more of the human-looking types. Or maybe he's a pig-nosed reptilian, and they look kind of more human-looking too. So I don't know, but I don't think he's one of the monster-looking ones, kind of like Joel is in the other dimension. So there's nothing perverted about Anthony. He's the one that was posing as a homeless man when he showed up for me 4 times physically. But I don't think he's ever going to show up again, at least not physically. But so yeah, I think it's very possible he could have given me this virtual reality experience. Of course, he was already back in his dimension when he gave me this experience. So anyway, he plopped me down, he set me down. I felt like I wasn't really outdoors. I felt like I was under a dome or something. And I looked over to my right, and there were all these mountains, like in layers, going up high over to my right. And there was a bunch of picnic tables, on each little, not mountains, I guess you can call them hills, big hills or whatever. Or maybe they were mountains, I don't know. Big hills or big mountains. And there were, picnic tables on each layer of mountain or hill, stacked up going high or whatever. And there were like medieval men, like 4 or 5 medieval men. They were large, they were very large. I can't remember what they had on or anything, but they were very large men, and they were just standing around the picnic tables, like 5 of them, a piece at each picnic table. And the whole time I was like standing there, I had these thoughts. See, they can put these, well, Joel, he always puts, lots of times he puts sexual thoughts. Like this morning, he gave me this dream. It was just a dream, but he put all these sexual, they can kind of mind control you into thinking sexual things or whatever under these experiences or whatever. But this was actual virtual reality experience. And out of body experience, virtual reality experience. This morning it was just a dream. But anyway, so, and like I say, sometimes I feel them actually take me out of body, and sometimes, bam, they just throw me in a virtual reality scenario, and sometimes I may not really be out of body, so to speak. Okay, so anyway, I had these, here's the thoughts I started thinking. I said to my, in my head, I was like, as I was looking at the mountains, I was like thinking in my head, Anthony, like about 5 or 6 times. So that's why I think it's, like maybe he kind of mind controlled me to think that, to tell me that he was giving me the experience. And when he showed up in physical form, he always liked to talk about government things. And, or government terms or whatever. And, and then after that, after I said Anthony, like 5 or 6 times, mentally in my head, as I was standing there, out of body in this scenario, I started thinking about how when that one guy interviewed me, the digital wired guy, when he interviewed me, the way he said it, I was thinking all this under the experience, the way he said, I was thinking, the way that digital wired, the way he, said, oh, these aliens, this woman, Zenith Grays, has these experiences with aliens that, show her all these things, or, what's shown to her. I don't know. And the way he said it, it's almost like, they're showing me like heaven realms or, and all that. And the whole time I was, having these thoughts like that, like as I was looking at the mountains. And I was thinking, it's not like that. It's not like they're showing me all these heavenly realms with bright, vibrant colors. It's not like that. They just show me normal things, like what you see in 3D or whatever. Except sometimes they do have magical abilities. They do use their technology and do funny things sometimes. But, they don't necessarily show me like heaven realms that have these like vibrant, what's it called? Technicolor or whatever. They do sometimes put little Technicolor stuff in my experiences, but it's not like the whole experience is like Technicolor. Like, I don't know, in movies, I guess some movies will act like heaven is like that or something. I don't know. But I was just thinking, it's not like that. I was looking at the mountains. So anyway, he probably mind controlled me to think all of that stuff. How when Digital Wired interviewed me, the way he presented it was like the aliens are showing me all this stuff. Like, I don't know. It's just not like that. You know what I'm saying? They just show me normal things, whatever they want to. They're not necessarily showing me true dimensions or whatever, or true. They're not showing me true heaven realm and all that. They're just using their technology or whatever to show me all these artificial virtual reality experiences. That's what I think anyway. But anyway, so I had all those thoughts as I was standing there staring at the mountains and the medieval men at each picnic table. Okay, so then I look over to my left, and there is like and like I said, I didn't really feel like I was outside, so to speak, even though there's all these mountains over to my right. Far, kind of far in the distance. Not too far away, but yeah, I felt like I was under a dome, and that's not the first time I felt like I was under a dome. Under a virtual reality experience, aka abduction. So anyway, I looked over to my left, and there were two guys standing there. Now, I do not remember them. They didn't have uniforms on. They just had plain clothing on. And they only looked about, 29, 30. One of them had short, brownish hair. The other one had kind of longish, stringy, not real long, but longish, stringy, kind of like reddish, brownish. And they looked at me and they said, "We are the Department of Homeland Security immigration agents." And they were just in this small little room over to my left, but the right part of it was all open. Like there was a wall in the back, a wall to the right, a wall to the left, and then, it was all open. The back part or front part or whatever was all open. And so they told me they were the Department of Homeland Security immigration agents, and it's like they were it's like they were insinuating that they needed to check me out before I went through the security checkpoint or something. And I didn't actually walk through a security checkpoint, but it's kind of like that's what they were insinuating. And then next thing I know, the brownish, light brownish, reddish, stringy haired guy, he like, because like I say, it was kind of like I was trying to go through this security clearance thing. And in order for me to do that, it's like, he grabbed this, I don't know if it was a towel, it's like over to the left side of the wall. And like I said, this was just a small little room, like, like 13, maybe not even 13 foot, like 11 foot by 8 foot, like little room, so to speak, but one part of the wall was all open, and they were standing there. But anyway, over on the left part of the wall, the lighter haired guy, he grabbed, and like I say, it almost seemed like he grabbed part of the curtain. He either grabbed a towel or part of the curtain, and he's like, "Stick your face in here." And so I stuck my face in there, and it was almost like I stuck my face. I felt like I was sticking my face in like a mask, a surgical mask. And actually, I do own a bunch of those masks. And I put them on sometimes, like when I clean litter boxes and all that. So see, and they know all that. They can read your brain. So that's probably why he put that in my scenario. But it's kind of like I had to do that in order to pass this little security checkpoint or something, like stick my face in that mask. Except, Anthony mind controlled me to think it was a surgical mask, but it wasn't. They just grabbed, not they, but he, the light hair guy, grabbed a towel. It was either towel or part of the curtain, and I can't remember which. And I did actually, like, bam, like, stick my face down in it. But like I say, I felt like it was more like a surgical mask. And like I say, I own a bunch of those, and I have them laying around my house and stuff. Some in my garage and hanging on my wall near the litter pans or whatever. And I have one in my car in case I smell gas and shit going around town. And I'll put it on my face if I smell gas or whatever. So anyway, so I was like I was thinking, okay, well, I don't understand why I have to do all this, since I'm an alien or whatever. So finally, I told, okay, the dark-headed one, after I stuck my face in the mask, I was thinking in my head, I got to try to convince them that I shouldn't have to go through security checkpoint or clearance or whatever. So I looked at the brown-headed man, the shorter brown-headed man, and they both were kind of short. They weren't tall at all, like 5'6.5". And like I say, they only looked about 30. But they didn't have any, they had plain clothing on. They didn't have any, uniforms on. But anyway, so I looked at the dark-headed man, and I said, well, I'm an alien, and I could disappear. And that's not the first time they've said that the aliens already told me that I was an alien under my experiences. Or I was a representation of a reptilian or whatever. Well, that abduction I haven't talked about yet. But, okay, so anyway, and so I told him, I'm an alien and I can disappear. And so what I did was I walked back, but behind me, I turned around and walked back, and I walked for a few yards or whatever, and I tried to make myself disappear, and I couldn't. And I turned back around, and because he was watching me to see if I could disappear. And so I turned back around, facing the short, dark-headed man, and it was so funny. He gave me the most funniest look because he was watching me to see if I would disappear. He gave me the most funniest look. And I was like, I felt kind of like embarrassed. I looked at him and felt kind of embarrassed because I was like, oh shit, I couldn't make myself disappear. So anyway, I couldn't make myself disappear, but he gave me a funny look because he was expecting me to disappear and I didn't. But anyway, this was a quick little experience. I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting anything. I don't think I am. But yeah, sometimes they can make you think all these thoughts. And see, since he made me think in my brain as he set me down in the experience, or stood me down in the experience, and I was like, Anthony, like 5 or 6 times, I think it was him that gave me this experience. Because like I said, when I met him in physical form, there's nothing, he's not like one of those perverted ones. And so apparently, he gave me this virtual reality experience, and it was nothing sexual. And now as I think back, I've had a lot of other virtual reality experiences similar to this, and who knows, maybe it was Anthony giving me those experiences, and that was all before I met him in physical form. But another thing, that's not the first time that the Reptilians have, posed as like a homeless man or a hobo. Like back in 2004, when that reptilian sat on my bed, the corner of my bed, right as I was about to lay down, it felt like 385-pound man, but at the time I didn't know it was a reptilian sitting on my bed. I thought it was my spirit guides. I knew who my spirit guide was at the time, and I knew two friends of hers that she was hanging out with, and I saw glimpses of both of them, Danley and Mabe. My spirit guide came to me for several minutes too back then, and she's like an ancient Egyptian spirit guide, very black skin. She's totally awesome. And anyway, so she told me she was hanging out with Danley and Mabe. And like I say, I saw glimpses of them. Mabe is the more sophisticated, white-collar one. Danley is the real poor, hobo, not very attractive one. So and see, the aliens knew all of these thoughts that I was having at the time. And like I say, who knows if Danley and Mabe, the reptilians, could have actually created those images for me. And I would like to think my spirit guide is really real, but I mean, I know she's real spirit or whatever, or alien or whatever, but who knows if she's really my spirit guide? I don't know, because at the time I was listening to Sylvia Browne, and the aliens know, you know, what you're listening to and your thoughts and stuff, but everything I learned, I experienced, because Sylvia Browne kept talking about spirit guides. And so I was asking my higher powers, who's my spirit guide? And then my ancient Egyptian spirit guide came to me. I mean, she was beautiful. She was real. Now, who knows if the reptilians maybe brought her to me? Who knows if she was just a normal, you know, spirit, or maybe really an alien looking like an ancient Egyptian? I don't know. But, you know, and then on the Ouija board, she tells me she's hanging out with Danley and Mabe. And like I say, I saw, they keep saying that Mabe is hanging out with his SUV, and he's always opening up the back door of his SUV, and I saw a glimpse of him with my eyes closed. He opened up the back door of his big old black SUV, and he, like I say, he's more white collar looking, but Danley is hobo looking and poor and kind of ugly. And like I say, so when that entity not landed on my bed, but sat on the corner of my bed, and I had my bed really low to the floor, back in 2004, you know, I didn't know about the aliens at the time. I didn't know the aliens were giving me all these experiences, and they probably even created Danley and Mabe. They're probably not even real spirits, if you know what I'm saying. But anyway, so when this, and like I say, I wasn't even in an altered state of consciousness. I mean, I just lay down, I closed my eyes, I opened them, and because I felt my body shrinking, and I opened my eyes, and boom, he was sitting there with a big old hobo backpack. Now, I don't know who it was, what reptilian it was. You know, I don't think it was necessarily Anthony. I don't think it was Joel. I think it was another reptilian. But he was heavy. I mean, like 385 pounds. And he sat on my bed, and he had a big old hobo backpack on. And like I say, at the time, I didn't know anything about aliens. I thought it was Danley, which, you know, Danley is a hobo in his dimension, a poor guy, homeless man, hobo in his dimension. So I thought it was Danley that sat on my bed, but it really was a reptilian. So that's not the first time they've been posing as homeless people.